Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Reminder to ask questions for my Q&A. With that housekeeping out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to be talking about something that's going to be immediately out of date when this episode comes out. And it is the French legislative election. Because the French legislative election happened right around right at the end of when the last episode came out, and the results, the second round, will be happening when this episode comes out. So we're going to be seeing, this episode, again, is going to become immediately out of date. So if you don't know, in the French election that is currently going on, there are a couple of, divides and electoral alliances. The biggest three are Macron's alliance, Ensemble pour la République, there's the far-right National Rally, and the left-wing New Popular Front. And, very unfortunately, the National Rally is currently winning of the seats that have been called, because the way French elections work is basically, from what I recall, in these legislative elections, people, the specific districts, they can either go to a runoff, or they can just be won outright, depending on the vote total. And what has been going on currently is that of the ones that have been called, the ones that have winners immediately, the National Rally and its allies have 38 seats. Meanwhile, the New Popular Front has 32 seats. The Ensemble de la République has 2 seats. So, very bad showing for Macron's party, Macron being the incumbent, if you do not know. And one of the big tests that has been going on is what happened immediately before the election, because many people were worried about the National Rally and its allies gaining prominence in France. So, one of the big things that happened was right before the election, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the de facto leader of the New Popular Front, despite the fact that he is not really the one who is in charge of it, he's kind of seen as the de facto leader because he's the leader of the French left. So, he basically said, hey, if our candidates get third place, we will withdraw our candidates, because you can all of them will, at least all the ones that get a certain threshold, get to go on to the next round. Meanwhile, Macron's party did not necessarily make that same promise immediately. However, after the races were finalized, then we started seeing some candidates start withdrawing their names. The New Popular Front has withdrawn 126 of their candidates in this upcoming second round. Meanwhile, Ensemble has only withdrawn 81 of their candidacies. Clearly, we see which campaign is really the more hard line in the anti-right wing. I don't necessarily know how this will bode well really for the National Popular Front's vote totals, because if they don't have candidates, then they probably aren't going to do so hot. But I hope that the New Popular Front does manage to pull off some victories, especially considering there's some people who are trying to figure out what will happen after the election is even called. After the election is done, how does this all going to pan out? Because one of the big things that a lot of people are hoping is that, or at the very least, they're hoping at least one party will manage to get a decent amount without needing to form any broader coalitions with any of the other coalitions. Because people are afraid, again, people are afraid of the National Rally winning outright, but people who are on the left and liberal side are a little bit concerned about how things would pan out if it's just Ensemble and the New Popular Front. People in the New Popular Front camp are hoping they win outright, and people in the Ensemble camp hoping they win outright, because there's concerns these two guys probably won't be joining in a coalition with each other anytime soon. With one thing that Macron has tried to state is that he wants to form a grand coalition that basically excludes the two major parties of his left and his right, La France Insoumise and the National Rally, with La France Insoumise openly saying they would refuse a grand coalition regardless. With some randos on Twitter proposing the idea that maybe Macron should join with the National Rally in an alliance, particularly to make sure that La France Insoumise doesn't get to be in the prime minister seat. And apparently, some people are even suggesting that Macron might even just decide to call a second snap election. Would literally be fucking hilarious if he did do that. But there's one small thing that I think would be interesting to talk about. And that is the prospect of what would happen if the New Popular Front actually managed to win and got to choose who the prime minister should be, with basically every single party within the New Popular Front basically stating that if they were to win, they would get to choose who the prime minister is. Some people have suggested Francois Hollande, Some people have suggested Fabien Roussel, but of course, we all can't deny, one of the biggest names that has been thrown out is, of course, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And one of the reasons why they're having such a hard time picking the prime minister is because, unlike the NUPES coalition, this one is a collective leadership coalition where all the leaders of all the parties get together and basically meet with each other and discuss strategy and such. So it's a little harder for them to figure out who's the main figure, whereas NUPES was basically Jean-Luc Mélenchon and La France Insoumise, and the rest of them were kind of underlings. One of the big things that this coalition has tried to do, especially most prominently the center-left members of the coalition, like the Socialist Party and the Ecologists. So basically, they have suggested that they would get to choose who the prime minister is. With many people, apparently a poll was conducted where many people stated that they would rather a Socialist Party person be chosen as opposed to a La France Insoumise person. And while they haven't explicitly stated they would prefer them over Mélenchon, I think it's kind of apparent that Mélenchon is the one they're thinking of. Really, if you're thinking a La France Insoumise candidate to be prime minister, who honestly else do you think it could be except for Mélenchon? Personally, if I were in there, I think Mélenchon should be the prime minister. And there's two reasons why. Well, there are a couple of reasons why. First, big reason, I don't really know that much about other political figures on the French left in the moment. I know kind of vaguely about some of the leadership candidates that were in the last time, like Roussel, and there's this one guy, the new anti-capitalist guy, Philippe Poutou, one of those, him. I know a little bit about them, but I don't really know much about some of the new faces that are going on. But there's a reason why. The second reason is this. Because if Jean-Luc Mélenchon is the prime minister, I think that's the prime opportunity for him to pass the torch. He'll be focused on prime ministership until he decides to retire or until he loses. Then they can pass the torch to the next person in the French left. France gets a good prime minister and gets the chance to make the left move forward. I see nothing but goodness. Speaking of goodness, let's talk about the United Kingdom election. And, well, there is, to an extent, some goodness in this. I guess we can't beat around the bush and acknowledge the fact that the Conservative Party lost massively in this election, with the Labour Party getting 411 seats compared to the Tories' 121 seats. Lib Dems got a pretty decent showing with 72 seats, essentially putting them finally back in the position that they, the thing I said in the podcast, it put them back in the position of being part of the Big Three. The Scottish National Party unfortunately only got 9 seats, Sinn Féin kept their 7, Reform UK got 5 seats, technically 6 considering a smaller party called the Traditionalist Unionist Voice. I think it's an Irish party who supports the union, and they were in alliance with Reform UK, so they kind of maintain an alliance, so they kind of count as a coalition. Democratic Unionists got 5, Green Party got 4, Plaid Cymru got 4, Social Democrat and Labour Party got 2, the Alliance Party of Northern Ireland got 1, the Ulster Unionist Party got 1, and 6 people got elected as independents. Some baseness is the fact that Alba got wiped, and just generally it's kind of cool that the Conservatives lost, but the fact that the Labour Party that they elected isn't a good one is kind of cringe. But there's also another element of baseness that is lumped into here. Those 6 independents are actually, at least 5 of those independents are actually pretty cool. Because one of those independents is based big man himself, Jeremy Corbyn, managing to beat the Labour-selected candidate in his home district of Illington North. But another thing that is interesting, which was a bit of a shock to be honest, I kind of expected that there would be some form of retribution in an extent, but this is very interesting, that we also got 4 new independent candidates that are now MPs, and all 4 of them are Arabic/Muslims who were selected purely on the issue of Palestine. The 4 in question being Shawkat Adam, who won in Leicester South, Adnan Hussein, who won in Blackburn, Iqbal Mohammed, who won in Dewsbury and Batley, and Ayub Khan, who won in Birmingham Perry Bar. Interesting fact about Khan is the fact that Khan is apparently a former Liberal Democrat candidate. And, well, interesting. And of course, immediately, people in the UK immediately jumped on the race thing and said, oh, look, we elected 4 Islamists. When, no, that's not what happened. But genuinely based that these 4 managed to win and and all 4 of them were in Labour districts, I should have mentioned, but I think that kind of is obvious, and I think it's good. At least I hope that they maintain that their focus will be on the Palestine issue and that they're based on other issues. I'm slightly concerned that one or two of them might pull a George Galloway, but I don't really have any indication to remotely indicate that they would do that. Oh, by the way, I should mention this. Workers' Party lost their 1 MP, George Galloway, based. Take the small victories where we can get them, my friends. Speaking of small victories, next news story is a very interesting one. And it is the fact that many Democrats are just openly calling on Joe Biden to either resign or drop out. There's been a lot of people. It's been a slow burn. So first, Lloyd Doggett, a representative from Texas, was the first person to call on Joe Biden to drop out of the race. Then came Representative Raul Grijalva. Then came Representative Seth Moulton. And there have been like multiple different instances of people saying that there will be a list or an official statement by Democratic officials to try and get Joe Biden to drop out of the race and have a different candidate run. Tying with the fact that many people have been stating, like, Joe Biden has kind of openly stated that he might be interested in doing it himself as well. Ever since the failure of his most recent presidential debate, many people have just, like, it's been, again, it's a slow burn. Many Democrats initially were like, a little like, I don't know. And then they rushed to his defense. And then many Democrats are starting to, like, openly call for him to resign. Because I think what they were thinking is, oh, if we're gracious and we're nice, then maybe he'll get our little hints that we might be interested in having him run, like, not run anymore. But then it just got a bit more blatant, and they're just like, we just can't pull any punches anymore. Like there's been multiple different, like, quote unquote letters that would allegedly come out saying about Democratic officials saying that they want Joe Biden to drop out. Mark Warner is allegedly spreading one amongst Senate Democrats. And there's allegedly going to be a progressive caucus one that's going to come out soon. Meanwhile, Biden has maintained that he will remain on the ballot and he will remain the candidate for president. Many people are now not so sure. Even now, I'm not necessarily sure if he will run or if he will drop out. Because there are a lot of people who've been saying a lot of different things. Again, like, Biden has tried to maintain every day, like, I'm running, I'm staying in the race. But again, privately behind the scenes, there was, like, the leak saying, like, oh, Biden's interested in he's thinking about mulling his chances, and they're like, but then the next day he's like, oh yeah, these people are lying. It's like, well, he's clearly thinking about it to an extent. Whether or not how serious he takes it is a different story. But I think, really, it does seem like Biden might be, I'm not trying to say anything yet, but I do see it a lot more 50-50 on whether or not Biden would remain in the race or not. Especially considering some people who there have been some people who are being very, very close to the circle that are starting to, like, heed the warning. Like, first, there was Jim Clyburn, who initially, again, was just like, no, Biden is not going to drop out. And I wouldn't support anybody to run against him. But then he goes, oh, I mean, hypothetically, if Kamala Harris stepped in, I would support her. It's like, oh, interesting to note that. Interesting. And apparently Hakeem Jeffries, leader of the House Democratic Caucus, has literally just tweeted out, apparently a Kamala Harris campaign slogan, essentially making it known that they probably want Kamala to essentially take over the position after Biden. Even so-called presidential expert Alan Lichtman has stated that he thinks of this specific idea that Joe Biden should resign from the presidency, then have Kamala Harris like, immediately assume the presidency, then she could then run and win the election because it would give her the advantage of incumbency. Personally, I don't really think that really is that important. Really? I don't think it does. But honestly, it could go either way. Like, honestly, I'm even at the point where I'm thinking that maybe a brokered convention or an open convention can happen. I don't know. I'm just sitting here waiting for this to go on. It doesn't really matter what happens next, because it's usually just like, I mean, really, the fact of the matter is, I guess you all probably want to know, like, what is my take on this? Should they replace Biden? Should they not replace Biden? Again, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because I can see the arguments both ways. I can see, like, the arguments like, oh, yeah, Biden has the advantage of incumbency. I can see the arguments of, oh, Kamala has the advantage of incumbency to an extent. I can see, like, basically, the only perspective I have of this is it can't hurt. I don't think it can hurt the Dems' chances picking someone else to be the presidential nominee. The only thing that might slightly hurt is optics, in the sense that people are like, then why'd you go through this process and just go through and allow Biden to be the nominee if you were just going to immediately replace him and just overturn the will of the people? And speaking of the whole, like, convention stuff, there's one more thing I should mention. Apparently, like, another House Democrat, Brad Sherman, apparently literally tweeted out just randomly to a person saying, actually, technically, there's nothing in the law that says that the delegates have to vote for the candidate they are pledged to, which is technically true. And that's another thing I should mention. Are a lot of these things even technically possible? Yes, technically all these things are possible. The Dems could literally just do a convention right now and just unilaterally say, you know what, Kamala's the nominee, and nothing would be even remotely a problem. The only slight issue that a lot of people seem to have is like the whole, like, ballot access thing, but I think that's something that they could find a way around. Again, I don't think it can hurt the Dems to pick someone else. Whatever. I mean, again, it wouldn't really matter who they pick. The only goal is to get rid of Trump. That's basically the only goal, so whatever. Anyways, speaking of whatever, let's move on to the main topic of this video. This episode is going to be a slightly controversial one. We're going to be talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Greg Casar, Summer Lee, Delia Ramirez, and Jamal Bowman. These 9 members of the U.S. Congress have formed an informal group known as the Squad. And in the 5 years since the group's foundation, they have earned a lot of ire from a lot of people. Not just from the right, but also a hefty amount of people on the left have levied criticisms of the Squad. Literally, since the Squad became a thing, there has always been one section of the alleged left that has made a point to oppose AOC and the Squad to varying degrees, to the point where it seems like the divide on the left is not necessarily pro or anti-Squad. It's just it's just varying degrees of anti-Squad, like, quite literally. Like, even the people who claim to be, like, super pro, like even the people who are seen like literally, no matter what angle you come from, it always seems like everybody is anti-Squad. Even Vosh will make videos being like, oh, well, you see, the Squad is blah, blah, blah. Like, the Squad is kind of cringe but whatever. Like, I mean, sure, we expect, like, the tankies and all those, like, super cringe lefties to say that, but then there's Vosh, who is allegedly supposed to be part of, like, the pro-Democratic Party wing, and even other people on the pro-Democratic Party wing of the quote-unquote left. Cenk Uygur, not Ayanna Pressley, fucking Anna Kasparian. I don't know if this is true or not, but Sam Cedar. Like, those types of people would also lump in, like, oh, well, you see, Squad is, like they give, like, some varying critique of the Squad, and then, like, they'd still probably advocate broadly pro-Squad, but in the veneer of anti-Squad. And hot take, my apparent hot take is that all of you are wrong. The Squad is good. I'll say it once more. The Squad is good. I'll say it one more time. The Squad is good. I believe that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Greg Casar, Summer Lee, and Delia Ramirez are all good. And you are all wrong. And hopefully I'll use this video to explain why I think, ultimately, the Squad are good, a net positive. like anything remotely, like, yes, they're a good thing, even before anybody comments, I'll know you didn't get this far in the video if you comment anything without acknowledging this part. Yes, you're freely allowed to criticize AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Omar, Presley, Bush, Bowman, Kassar, Lee, and Ramirez. I've done this in the past. I've critiqued all of them in the past. I'll continue to critique them in the future. None of these 9 are 100% immune to criticism by any means. The title is intentionally provocative to elicit reactions, similar to how the left does this a lot. Not to use this example again, but Vosh. He'll go, well, I believe that NATO has ultimately done a net positive for the worldwide affairs, particularly in attacking Russia. So I think they're a good thing, but then we'll hyperbolically state, oh, you see, NATO is actually the vanguard of socialism around the world. We know that that's not true, but he's using an intentionally hyperbolic statement in order to elicit reactions. Vosh says this a lot, to the point where he says some things that definitely elicit very interesting reactions, but, you know, we're just going to be focusing on the squad here, my friends. I should also mention that a lot of this will revolve around Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because of the 9, she's basically considered the boogeyman. Like, literally, when the squad was first, like, made, like, there's reasons why some members of the squad get more shit than others. AOC gets more shit because she's the de facto leader of the squad. She was the first, and she was probably the most notable of the squad. She primaried and beat one of the top Democrats in the United States House of Representatives. That's no small feat. And as such, she's typically seen as the lightning rod for the squad. She typically gets all of the hate and all of the attention, with a couple of them also getting heat in their own directions, to varying degrees. Again, like, I'll just acknowledge this. Ayanna Presley, Greg Kassar, and Delia Ramirez do not get as much shit as a lot of the rest of the squad. Anyways, first I just want to do this. I just want to do this because I find this interesting. Alright. What are the criticisms of the squad? Because I genuinely want to know. I genuinely want to know. What are the criticisms of the squad? Because, again, and I've covered them a lot on the show before, but let's try to go over it again. What are some of the things that I have heard people criticize AOC and the squad for? Here's a comprehensive list that I have made that hopefully will give you an explanation. Like, maybe this will help us figure out the clues. Okay, AOC and the squad have been critiqued for 1, being Democrats. Alright. 2, not being socialists. I don't think that's true. Raising money for people freezing to death. Is that a bad thing? Not letting Republicans become Speaker of the House. Ooh, scary. Not letting fascists become president. These are left-wing critiques, right? Selling out their political capital for woke points. What? Citation? Saying Latinx. Triggered snowflake, I guess. What? Voting wrong on bills. Okay, I guess that's a legitimate critique. If you think that they did not vote right on a bill, then that's one thing. Voting right on bills? Wait, what? Being imperialists? Come on, there's no way that's true. Being Zionists. And I should mention this, because I want to make this very explicitly clear. All of the squad get attacked for all of these positions. Yes, even that last one, people legitimately said, Zuko's Madre on Twitter literally said that Rashida Tlaib is a Zionist pig. Rashida, the woman whose family is literally being bombed by Israel right now, she's a Zionist. Really? And I'll get into another thing in this episode that kind of explicitly shows that she's not a Zionist, but if you know, you know. But again, I should mention, all of those were criticisms that, quote-unquote, leftists say of the squad. Leftists have made these criticisms. And this kind of immediately shows why I don't take criticisms of the squad really that much seriously. Because half of them are just blatantly untrue. Like, let's go over them again. They're not Zionists. They're not imperialists. They did not sell their capital for woke points. They are socialists. Again, that's a lot of them already. The other half are not criticisms. Like, literally, it's just like, oh, they raised money for people dying in a blizzard. How is that a bad thing? Like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, people online will criticize AOC and the squad for doing things that are just like, they're not wrong. Like, AOC got another shit because she appeared in a thing that was advertising people to wear sunscreen to lower their risk of melanoma. And people were like, lol, AOC sellout. It's like, what do you mean AOC sellout? It's a PSA telling you to wear sunblock. What's the problem? And bringing up the attention to the fact that the United States has vastly less regulations in regards to this matter. Again, of that list, the only valid criticism is that they vote wrong on bills. And even then, it's not often. Like, quite literally, I can't really, like, because I asked people online around, like, can people name the elusive bad bills that AOC or the squad voted for? And it's like, it'll literally be like, they'll bring up at most one bill out of like hundreds of thousands. Like, literally, it'll be like 1 out of 100 bills, one member of the squad will vote wrong. Or like very few, literally it'll be like, oh, every member of the squad except for AOC voted for this bill, and AOC voting against this bill was actually a shitty thing or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's an L. But this bill isn't that big of a deal, really. And this bill was going to pass either or regardless, so who cares? And even when they vote wrong on the bill, it's almost easily able to be explained away and just be like, oh, well, that's why. It's like there's a clear explanation right there, ready for you to understand. Like, one of the big ones I've seen is like a lot of people are like, oh, well, the squad supported defund the police, and yet almost immediately, what did they do when it was time for the new Congress to be voted on? They voted on this bill, and the bill in question was a Capitol Police funding bill. Half of the squad, Rashida, AOC, and Bowman, voting present. Meanwhile, the other members of the squad, Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, and Ilhan Omar, voted against it. Now first, I should pause and explain what the hell a present vote is, for those who don't know, because that's where a little bit of another issue comes up. Present votes are like a very interesting endeavor in the United States Congress, because in the United States Congress you can do one of a couple of things. If you show up, you can do one of 4 things. You can A, vote for a bill, B, vote against a bill, C, vote present on the bill, or D, not vote at all. Though there's a good chance that if you're in the legislative chamber, you're going to vote on one of the bills. So you're essentially going to do one of the first 3 things. Voting yeah on a bill obviously means you help it pass. Voting nay on a bill means that you try to stop it from being passed. Present is where things get a little complicated. Voting present is when you are a member of Congress, you walk into the chamber, you see this bill, you've either read it or not, and due to you reading the bill and seeing what it does, or you not reading the bill and not wanting to express your opinion on it, you vote present on the bill, basically stating that you, for whatever reason, decide that you will not play a hand on voting for or stopping the bill. This, I think, was originally intended to literally be like, if you didn't read the bill, then you can just not really express your support for the bill. But it also kind of seems to be a different aspect. Like, there's a different political aspect of this one. Because what happens is, since you voted present on the bill, what ends up happening is that the threshold to pass the bill lowers by 1. And if enough people do it, then the threshold will lower significantly. If 5 people vote present on a bill, then the threshold lowers by 5. And what a present vote usually means is that the member, no matter how they vote, they're going to get shit for the bill. So they just decide to wipe their hands clean of the affair. During the bill that the United States Congress passed that denounced socialism, there are many members of the United States Congress that literally voted present on the bill, because either way they voted on the bill, they would have done some bad things would have happened. Basically, like, left-leaning progressive Dems who either it could have been one of two things. It could have been a person who was a left-leaning progressive Democrat who had socialists in their electoral base who personally wanted to vote for a condemnation of socialism because they are not socialists. But if they have socialists in the electoral base, that electoral base might not turn out to vote for them next time. So they just go, I'm going to wipe my hands clean of it. Or maybe they wanted to express support, like wanted to say, like, hey, we will not denounce socialism. I don't think it's a good decision. But then they don't want that to be on attack as being like, this congressman doesn't denounce socialism. What the fuck? Like, they don't want that. So they also wipe their hands clean of the affair. And with that, it makes total sense why Rashida, AOC, and Bowman voted present on raising funding for the Capitol Hill Police. Because while they themselves might express, like, disappointment on, like, they express support for defund the police. But literally, 2 months before that vote came to the floor, they were literally saved by the Capitol Police from fascist rioters who wanted to kill them. I mean, again, like, it's a quote-unquote a bad vote, but I can get where it's coming from. Another infamous example that the squad has used came from AOC's vote on funding of the Iron Dome, where she initially voted nay, but after a talk with Pelosi, she switched her vote to present. Why? I don't know. A lot of people love to editorialize the reason why AOC did it. Maybe she got Pelosi to vote for a left-wing bill. Maybe she threatened a primary bid. I don't know. But either way, there were a lot of people who seem to think that present votes are just as bad as yes, considering a lot of people like to perpetuate the notion that AOC voted for the Iron Dome funding, which isn't true. You can argue about, like, whether or not you think a present vote is good or bad, but she didn't vote for it. Like, I mean, that same time everybody was shitting on AOC, nobody was shitting on Jamal Bowman for explicitly voting for it. There were some who did, like DSA revoked their endorsement, but a broad majority of people were focused on AOC voting present. Another example of the squad and, like, at least one squad member using, like, present vote to express to express something is when Rashida Tlaib voted, like, when there was a bill that went around declaring on whether or not Israel had a right to exist, and Rashida Tlaib voted present on the bill. Which, to me, really just, the fact that Zuko's Madre literally says, oh, Rashida Tlaib's a Zionist, and it's like, but really, we have this vote right here that explicitly has a bill supporting the idea of Zionism, the fact that Israel has a right to exist, and Rashida Tlaib voted present on the bill. And now people will sometimes, like, one of the things that people will point out is like, but actually there was one person who voted nay. But Thomas Massie, literally when he voted nay, he explicitly made a public statement the, like, morning after, explicitly stating that he did support Israel's right to exist. Again, using the logic of how present votes work, this is literally Rashida Tlaib expressing her disapproval of this bill, but not explicitly voting against it because it would face some big political repercussions. And while we're here, we should also acknowledge some other, like criticisms of the squad that are, like, based on lies and half-truths. Like, it's one of the biggest reasons initially why I just did not, like, support people who were against the squad. Because a lot of times, they literally would just flat-out lie about AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and the squad's record, when literally you could just look up their record. It's freely, readily available for people to see. I genuinely cannot fathom how fucking misinformation just perpetuates itself online a lot, where you can literally, again, just look up any of this shit and immediately prove the point. Like, literally, here's some other examples. They're not necessarily, like, some of them are, like election-based, some of them are, like, whatever. Okay, so first, well, why didn't they bring up Tara Reid during the Tara Reid situation? They brought up all these sexual assault allegations under Trump. Why didn't they bring up Tara Reid? The AOC did. She literally, like, when these allegations came out, AOC literally posted a tweet saying, like, yeah, allegations like this are very, like, troubling. We should look into it. She literally expressed support for Tara Reid. AOC cried about kids in cages under Trump, but when Biden does it, she's radio silent. literally the day after Biden announced his immigration policy, she tweeted publicly, "This is not okay. Never has been okay. Never will be okay. No matter the administration or party." When Trump said that he wanted 2K in the COVID checks, the squad should have tried to get the Senate and the House to pass it. They literally did. Literally the next day, AOC and Rashida introduced an amendment to the bill to get COVID checks out, literally saying, hey, we'll strike out every mention of the fact that it's like 1.5K and then make it 2K. Why didn't they show up to March for Medicare for All? Cori Bush literally showed up to a March for Medicare for All rally. Like, what? She did. She literally did. Also, if they didn't, who cares? Because the march literally invited and was supported by multiple fascists online. Nico House, Jackson Hinkle, Fiorella Isabel, fucking Chad Wilson, the new Black Panther Party, Matthew Heimbach, literally. AOC said socialists are bad faith actors. But no, this is a gross misinterpretation by a literal political cult known as the Socialist Equality Party. Like, literally, this is a weird thing that it is so misrepresented that it's just so fucking hideous and heinous. The Socialist Equality Party is a literal political cult. It's a literal cult. I made a video about it, why it's a cult. I'll try to find the Google Doc that shows, like, some of the things that really just show, like, its cultiness, and try to put it in the description or in anything. SCP is a political cult. I'll just say it right here, right now, because I might make a video about it where I explain this, but maybe I won't. Socialist Equality Party is probably the only political party that I genuinely cannot make a video about, because I have so much of a negative interpretation of the party that I do not think I can make an objectively unbiased perspective in the party. Granted, I mean, none of my political history videos are, like, really necessarily unbiased, but I think that I just cannot really, like, I mean, I know I crack jokes a little bit in, like, my Socialist Labor Party video, but I was able to do somewhat of an objective, like, analysis of their party, but I don't think I can do the same for the Socialist Equality Party. Eric London basically found an interview that AOC did with the DSA's magazine, then wrote an op-ed basically shitting on it, and then somehow managed to trick people into thinking that he got an interview with AOC and she said, like, a bunch of shit. Alright, so here's what actually she said. What it actually was people, it's a DSA newspaper saying, hey, what do you think about people who say that there will be nothing good that comes out of a Biden administration? And she responded, and I quote, well, I think it's a really privileged critique. We're going to have to focus on solidarity with one another, developing our senses for good faith critique and bad faith critique, because bad faith critique can destroy everything that we have built so swiftly. And we know this because it has in the past, and it's taken us many decades to get to this point. We do not have the time or the luxury to entertain bad faith actors in our movement. But also, we have to value our solidarity with one another. For anyone who brings it up, we really have to ask ourselves, what is the message that you are trying to send to your black and brown and undocumented members of your community, of your friends, when you say that nothing has changed? Perhaps not enough has changed, and that is not a semantic argument. Just the other night, we, in a collective struggle, were able to stop the deportations of critical members of our community. And that would not have happened under a Trump administration. Yeah, I think I'll even probably copy and paste that to basically explain my perspective on this critique about the AOC and the squad. Because genuinely, just like, I guess I have to wait for the end to get to that. So let's just move on to another critique. I didn't mention it in, like, the big, like, block of critiques, but this is just a small one because I just genuinely don't really care that much about it. And it's the critique, like, oh, the AOC and the squad need to form a block. That they need to, like, vote, they always need to vote yes or no on a bill. I mean, sorry guys, it's just not how it works. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, like Jamal Bowman, they all represent vastly different areas of the country. And as such, each of their constituents have varying different demands. And they gotta serve their districts. Like, as much as I'd love for them to vote 100% exactly how I would vote on every piece of legislation, they can't. Sometimes they gotta vote how their district would want them to vote. Like, I mean, there are a lot of times where people, like, criticize AOC for, like, a specific, like, Israel-related, like, thing, or, like, an anti-Semitism-related bill, and it'll be like, her district has a large amount of Jewish people. Of course she's going to vote in a specific way in certain circumstances. Much like if you had a 99% black district, you wouldn't vote for a bill that said all black people are evil. Like, you wouldn't say that. That would be a stupid thing regardless of whether your district is black or not. Okay. But here's another one that is a very strange critique. Quote unquote, they don't do anything. Like, I mean, that was a critique that was made almost immediately after, after AOC got elected. Like, not after AOC got elected, but like after first year of Congress, their first term in Congress, there was like a thing that was posted online that said like AOC was one of the least effective members of Congress, and it was like that's kind of maintained to this day. Like, oh, they don't do anything. Like, a lot of people like say that, like, oh, they don't do anything. They don't do anything. Usually in reference to alleged things that they had to do, but yeah. Let's acknowledge this quote-unquote, they don't do anything. AOC has introduced 60 bills since entering Congress. Rashida Tlaib has entered 93 bills into Congress. Ilhan Omar has gotten 103, Ayanna Pressley 110, Jamal Bowman 36, Cori Bush 39, Lee 8, Kassar 6, Ramirez 7. In total, the squad has introduced 462 bills. That's not nothing. Like, guys, that's not nothing. Like, and I hear some of you might comment, well, they don't pass them. It's like, oh no. The 500 plus capitalists are stopping the 9 socialists from passing socialist bills. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? How's that the squad's fault? Like, yes, they've pushed the Democratic Party left in some capacity, but there's inevitably going to still be a divide between them. Like, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and all the rest of them, they're still considered, quote-unquote, far left to a lot of Americans when they're not, by any metric of the word. But one of the criticisms that are just dumb is the fact that, a lot of people will literally go so far as to critique the squad for doing good things. Like, really? Like, this is a weird thing. Like, I mean, criticizing the squad for doing bad things, that's one thing. Like, you know, AOC voted wrong on this bill. Okay, yeah, that's cringe. But I kind of find it weird when they critique the squad for doing the right things. They didn't force the vote for Medicare for All. Yeah, good. Because it was a stupid idea proposed by fascists. Genuinely, yeah. Good point. Good thing. Stop drilling. You already struck gold, my friend. I said it before and I'll say it again. Anyone who has advocated and continues to advocate for forced vote is stupid, deserves no support, unsub, stop giving them money on Patreon, stop following them. They deserve nothing but shame and disrespect. Jackson Hinkle got famous for forced the vote. Look where he is now. Literally a puppet of the Russian government. And quite literally is supporting fascist Trump for another term. I should probably make a video where I try to explain forced the vote for people who don't know. But there's a really long way to explain it. Okay, so basically, during 2021, after the squad got a couple of members, Jimmy Dore basically said, hey guys, I think it would be an interesting idea if we proposed an idea where, like, you guys hold your vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker on the condition that you get the Medicare for All vote on the House floor. Everybody said, okay, wait, what is this? And Jimmy said, no, guys, listen. Like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the House vote on the Medicare for All bill, and then everybody who votes against it we're going to run against them, and we're like, okay, then what about the co-sponsor list? No. You see, the co-sponsor list is meaningless. Less people are going to vote for Medicare for All, and what we're going to do is we're going to primary and run and hold rallies to make sure people do support Medicare for All. Like, primary the ones who don't support it, and also get them to support Medicare for All. Okay, but that's interesting. Wouldn't that allow Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker? No. There's no chance that Kevin McCarthy could have become Speaker. Really, that's interesting, because literally, if you look at previous speakership votes, you'll notice that all the people who voted present on the bill, on the speakership vote, coincidentally, they all, when they vote present, the number of votes you need goes down. And you're advocating for all these, like 15 members of the House of Representatives to vote present on the speakership vote. Who cares? This isn't even really about Medicare for All bill. Oh, wait, so it's not for Medicare for All? No, we're just really doing this to get rid of Nancy Pelosi. Okay, Oh, no, wait, no. This is about the Medicare for All vote. And we're actually doing this because we think the Medicare for All vote will pass. That's very unlikely. This is just like the women's suffrage vote. No. It's not even remotely like the women's suffrage vote. They had to convince one senator to change their mind on a bill that had almost universal support. You're trying to get us to convince like 500 members of the House of Representatives to vote against the interest of the healthcare corporations that are funding their candidacies. Hey, isn't it weird that all these people who seem to be advocating for your position are also people who are like endlessly shitting on the squad for doing the correct thing? Who cares? That's interesting that one of the people who's like leading this movement is literally best friends with a fascist. Who cares? Hey, didn't one of the people on this like board of like people who are like anti-Medicare for all, didn't you literally back a candidate who was anti-Medicare for all? I'm pretty sure there's a better way I could have explained. Like I did a better one on when I covered the Vanguard episode. I'll probably include that section like in somewhere. Like I'll probably like link it either in the like whatever. I'll link it somewhere. If not, I will. I definitely will this time. The next critique: they endorsed Joe Biden. First of all, that's not even necessarily true. Not all of them have endorsed Joe Biden. Rashida Tlaib is the only person who has effectively not stated that she's going to support Joe Biden. She's openly supported the uncommitted vote, and, again, has held her tongue from supporting Joe Biden. But also, yes, it's a good thing. Opposing Project 2025 is good. Good opposing fascism. Good. And this one is the one that genuinely made me really fucking realize just how stupid this was. I think this is literally the one where I literally said, it was literally in another episode, where I literally said, call me a squad simp, call me like a squad like ally, whatever, call me whatever, because this really just showed how fucking stupid it was. Because, okay, it was the situation regarding the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better plan. So what ended up happening was, if you don't remember, the squad and other progressives in the House made it known, because what ended up happening was there were two bills that were being pushed: a bipartisan infrastructure bill that was supported by Republicans and Democrats, and a Build Back Better plan that was specifically a part of Biden's political agenda. That was the thing that he wanted to do. And basically, the squad was like, okay, we're going to hold Biden to the account of what he actually wanted to do. And many of the people who are the so-called dinos, the ones who are literally supposed to be the ones that are like, oh yeah, we support Joe Biden no matter what. But those guys were the ones that were saying, we actually can't support this bill. And what ended up happening was the squad and other House progressives said, okay, here's what we're going to do. If you, House moderates, if you guys vote yes on the Build Back Better plan and pass that bill, we will help you pass the bipartisan infrastructure plan. And the dinos basically said, can we pass the BIF first? Oh, well, then you'll back the Build Back Better plan, right? I didn't say that we would back the BBB, but can we pass the BIF first? And then it's Pelosi normally would have budged, but then, like, the House Progressive Caucus was basically, hey, no, pass the BBB first, then pass the BIF. And Pelosi's like, okay, well, pass the BBB first. And, like, no, you see, this is the thing. The squad literally said, pass the BBB, then we'll pass the BIF. The dinos said, no, pass the BIF, and pass the BIF. Like, you could see, this was the trade-off that the squad was offering was, okay, we give you BIF, you give us BBB. And the dinos just said, no. So then the squad said, okay, fine then. The squad and the House Progressives just said, okay, fine then. And they just sat each other playing a game of chicken, trying to figure out, okay, who will cave first? And a lot of people online were proud of the Progressive Caucus and the squad, like claiming what they needed to do was hold the line, because everybody kept saying, oh yeah, they were expecting that there was going to be a big cave at some point, that the progressives would have to cave, and whatever. But a month-long battle literally just prolonged, and it literally just showed, like, yeah, quite literally, they're proving that they want to fight for this bill. And again, they didn't budge. And then finally came the point where it was like one side needed to budge. One side genuinely just needed a budge because it was like the final COVID like relief pill, like relief stuff was being passed. Like it was finally reaching its deadline. So I was like, okay, they need to do something. Like someone needs to cave immediately now. So what ended up happening was, sadly, what most people expected. This like progressive caucus inevitably caved and said, okay, fine. Like on the condition that they say, yeah, we'll pass the BB. And then Daniels literally just said, yeah, we'll pass the BB. Then what ended up happening was they passed the BIF and passed the BB, but the squad held firm in their conviction, saying, look, you didn't pass the BBB first, so we'll vote against the BIF. All 6 members of the squad voting against it. At the time, Ramirez, Lee, and Kassar were not in it. So it's like, great. They did the thing, like all the people online were saying hashtag hold the line, and the squad did. They held the line. They voted against the bill. Great. Too bad, like, every single person online who was anti-squad immediately moved the goalpost to shit on them again. Like, I mean, if they voted wrong, again, should have been shit on. But they didn't vote wrong. But literally, here's what happened. Professor Zinkus, one of the people that kept saying, like, look, if the squad votes, if the squad holds the line, the squad needs to hold the line. To show how truly, like, good they are, they need to hold the line. Then, day after the BIF-BBB vote, the squad voted no when it didn't matter, and the bill had the votes to pass. Everybody knew it. Pelosi had the vote count. Let's see them do it when it matters. But they voted no. They voted no. You wanted this, yes? They voted no. You're shitting on them for voting no on a bill you wanted them to vote no to. Those were basically my exact words at the time. Quite literally, how can you do that? You're shitting on them for the thing you explicitly told them you wanted to do. And again, that's why I can't take this criticism, quote unquote, of the squad seriously. Because if you're just going to be as blatant as that, what is the point of even entertaining your argument? Like, and I genuinely do not understand why people would even, like, hate the squad. Because, again, like, one of the things the squad does is they help push issues on a massive level. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, Palestine, socialism in and of itself. Before the squad came along, those all would have been seen as losing issues. But now, each and every one of those things are forefront policy discourse. Like, literally, Medicare for all was literally like a bill that would just be passed behind the scenes. Like, it would not pass, but, like, it would be floated around behind the scenes, and then nobody would vote for it. Green New Deal was literally a Green Party policy that, the policy of a party nobody gave a shit about, by an activist nobody gave a shit about, and now it's forefront discourse, so the Republicans have to spend every day shitting on it. Palestine, literally, back in the early 2000s, the most left-wing, I'll pull it up right now, I'll pull up the exact quote right now. Back in 2006, the progressive insurgents in the House, remember, this person's supposed to be the progressive insurgent. A lot of people call him, like, the squad before the squad. Literally said of Palestinians, they should start packing their little Palestinian terrorist bags. Remember, that was what the progressive insurgents used to talk like in regards to Palestine. Now we're at the point where if a progressive insurgent literally even remotely says anything pro-Israeli, they're immediately looked at with shame. Like, even to an extent, like, I know there's some people, like, I know to an extent, like, Greg Kassar is probably considered, like, the most Zionist of the squad, but even he isn't necessarily, like, as pro-Zionist or pro, like Israel as other people in Congress. Like, Greg Kassar supported every ceasefire plan. Like, back in the day, that would have been seen as unthinkable. The idea that a decent amount of, they could actually make a lot of members of the House of Representatives to even think about a ceasefire plan with Palestine, like, that would again be so unheard of. The fact that there was any advocacy for Palestinian issues in Congress was just unthinkable for a decent amount of time. Literally, it would be like, it was like, people would advocate for Palestinians, and then, like, almost after, like, I'm trying to remember exactly when, because, like, I remember, like, I know that there were a lot of members in, like, the 60s, like, members of the Democratic caucus, or, like, not just the Democratic caucus, but, like, members of the, like, members of Congress back during the 60s that literally were just so openly like not pro-Israeli, and then magically one day they just started being pro-Israeli. I think after like I guess the Suez crisis, that would be around the time. Like again, like back in the day, all these things, even socialism would have been considered a losing issue. But now, again, forefront discourse. Like, this is one thing that's even more weird. Communists and revolutionary leftists owe everything to the squad. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but I gotta be upfront. Like, a lot of you guys, like, want to claim, like, something. You guys wouldn't have any form of notoriety if people like Bernie and the squad weren't around. If they didn't introduce the ideas of socialism and bring it to a wider array of people, you would have not been anywhere remotely close to the ideological leanings that you are today. I know for certainly I wouldn't have, because literally what happened was Bernie Sanders started openly calling himself a socialist. People were like, oh, this is what socialism is? That's not like scary. And they just started looking into socialism, and boom, people would just randomly would go to places that just like had socialist in the name. Socialist Workers Party got a lot of votes in the 2016 election. DSA massively shot up in membership. World Socialist website, like whatever the fucking like Socialist Equality Party cult website is, they would have no readers if it weren't for the fact that like people literally, like I mean they would have like they're like culty member like readers, but they wouldn't have like broader like analysis from other people. Like people wouldn't care. They push the dialogue on these issues, leading to the election of more candidates to get closer to the ideal world that they want. You might say that's a slow process. That's a shitty process. It's not. It got us to the point where we are today, and if we keep... I don't see a point in taking what we have now and just going, no, smash it all down, start from scratch. Let's literally go back to square fucking one. If we actually somehow united and actually managed to actually push for help these people do these things, then maybe we'd actually be at a point where we could do things. Like, literally, in the past, we've had, like, 1 or 2 socialists elected per, like, 5 to 10 years. And now we have, quite literally, 9. Soon to be 8, sadly. But, yeah, we have a lot of socialists elected to Congress now. And that's not a bad thing. And I mean, even the ones that were elected have are it's a little hard to explain, but like some of them would literally, yes, you do not understand socialism in the United States. Like, guys, if you were a socialist who actually wanted to get anything remotely close to your ideology, even remotely past, you were literally starving from fucking 1932 to fucking 2016. You were fucking starving. You could either join a small party that would get nothing done, or maybe hypothetically Larry Agron ran. You could support him. Maybe you could find one of the very few members of Congress that were socialists, but then they weren't really that well. They weren't really that good if you actually think about it. I mean, guys, I hate to break it to you, but a lot of people in there's a list on Wikipedia right now. It's members of Congress that were socialists, and it usually stems from DSA membership or membership of a different socialist org or whatever. But guys, listen to some of these people who are on the list: Danny K. Davis, David Bonnier, John Conyers. Listen to them. Danny K. Davis literally just quit DSA and became an average normie Dem. He literally voted against a fucking labor bill that he voted against the Restoring Glass-Steagall. David Bonnier was literally a fucking head of the Democratic Party, but he effectively just governed as if he were a progressive Democrat. And John Conyers, John Conyers is kind of based, but he's also the guy who fucking wrote SOPA and PIPA. I think he backed Hillary Clinton multiple times in his career. Ron Dellums, one of the most fucking radical socialists when he got elected to Congress. When he left Congress, he became a fucking lobbyist. Sure, we had some really, really base members of Congress back in the time that were literally listen to some of the other members: Jerry O'Connell, Leo Isaacson, Meyer Lennon, Victor Berger, Vito Marcantoni. they're all based, but look at the time periods. They were basically their sole socialist representation for those time periods. Like, literally, Jerry O'Connell was the one who had the longest time period because he had two members of Congress that were socialists at the time, Jerry O'Connell and John Bernard. What ended up happening is that both of them lost re-election the following term. Leo Isaacson, he served for literally 1 year. Victor Berger, he was literally forbidden from taking his seat multiple times because they refused to let him be a member of Congress. Meyer London, he almost kind of had a similar situation where he kept being like beaten by like a duopoly united, and like it was literally like, and I'll use him and Vito Marcantonio to like explain this. Like, it was literally everyone versus them, and yes, that might have been a good thing to an extent, but it was also a bad thing, because like, I gotta be upfront. What did Vito Marcantonio, based, love him, one of my favorite members of the United States Congress, what the fuck did he actually do? Like, literally, of all of his time, he's granted, like, one bill in his entire congressional career. 14 years in Congress. One bill. He was so controversial. He was literally the killer of other people's campaigns. Claude Pepper and Helen Davis were both running for Senate in 1950, the year that Vito Marcantonio lost his seat. They were compared to Vito Marcantonio because of similar vote records. And literally, this is how fucking stupid it was. Video about the American Labor Party, like, coming up at one point in the year, but like, this is a funny thing. A lot of the bills that Vito Marcantonio and Helen Davis were voting, like, it's a very famous thing. The pink slip, what they call them, like what I called it. The thing that compared the bills between Helen Davis and it was like, oh, they voted together on like hundreds of bills. A lot of that was literally like fucking procedural shit. That's how fucking scary socialism was at the time period. But there are also members of Congress who were socialists who managed to get a lot of things done. Fiorello LaGuardia, Robert M. La Follette, I still maintain he's a socialist, 100%. And Bernie Sanders, they managed to get a lot of things done because they were different. Like, they had radical-ish roots, but they kind of changed things up a little bit. Like not like Danny K. Davis, Dave Ranier, and John Conyers, who kind of literally just became normie Dems. These guys maintained their independent streak, but they did it in a way that made it so that they could still like work things. And I consider the Squad in that last category. They have literally a streak independent from the rest of Congress, but they are not afraid to work with them. I mean, quite literally, I guarantee you that AOC and the Squad are probably further left than literally any other member of Congress in the United States history, with the exception of maybe Vito Marcantonio, Meyer London, and Victor Berger. Like, literally, those are the only three I can make an exception for. And even then, it's a little hard to determine because Victor Berger and Meyer London, I think, were literally considered, like, right to the left of Charles Hiram Randall, because they voted similarly on a lot of bills, even though Charles Hiram Randall is literally, like, right-wing. But that's because the way we analyze political ideology in the United States is literally based on vote record to an extent, not necessarily ideology, even though, again, I would maintain that. I would say that AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar probably have a harder left socialist policy than a lot of those other people. Again, with the exception of Victor Berger, Meyer London, and Vito Marcantonio, because they had a lot more, like, left-wing. I guess technically John Bernard to an extent, because John Bernard and maybe Jerry O'Connell were, like, communists, or Hugh DeLacy. But maybe, like, I don't know, it really depends on your analysis. A separate but related criticism that I have, that I think kind of also exemplifies a problem with all this, is the fact that a lot of people like to poo-poo the Squad. A lot of people like to shit on the Squad. Like, oh, the Squad is shit. The Squad are sellouts. Fraud Squad, whatever. Like, a lot of people like to do that. I sit there. I'm just like, okay, fine then. You hate the Squad. You shit on the Squad. What's your plan? Alright, you got my attention. You say the squad is ineffective. You say the squad can't do anything. What's your plan? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do? They don't have an alternative plan. Vote third party. Which third party? And what are you doing to help the third party? Like, literally. TJ Kirk, granted, TJ Kirk, I guess, technically has just proven, me wrong, because he's now officially decided to advocate for a third party. Advocate for Jill Stein. Okay, but what's he going to do to actually facilitate support for Jill Stein? Is he going to hold fundraisers for her? Is he going to max out all the donors for her? What's he going to do to help build the Green Party? No, he's not going to do anything about it. All he's going to do is shit on the squad and be done. We should stop focusing on electoral politics and do direct action. Direct action for what? What direct action do you want us to do? What specific thing are you requesting? Protest. Protest what? Where we protest? What's the protest? What is the plan? And that's even if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you might get an answer. If you're very lucky, you might get an answer. But the fact of the matter is, they don't have an answer. A lot of the time, they literally just want to shit on the squad and offer no alternatives. Quite literally. And they want to ignore the fact that if people like the squad are not in Congress, then your direct action or your third party really doesn't mean anything. Literally, what happened with Occupy? There were no people in Congress that were allies to Occupy, with the exception of, Bernie. And it showed. Occupy didn't get their solutions solved. But the Tea Partiers, who had bought a ton of members of Congress, they got their issues fixed because they had a representation that actually gave a shit about their issues. And, believe it or not, if you get rid of literally every single pro-Palestinian voice in Congress, then you're not really going to get a lot of people who are going to support Palestinian causes when you protest. All they want you to do is disenfranchise yourself from the electoral process entirely. And when you suggest anything to the contrary, you're laughed away. Again, ignore the fact that they have no fucking alternative. And what's worse is, even when they say, oh, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this, they don't want to focus on that. The Revolutionary Black Network literally held a general strike meeting where all they did was shit on AOC and the squad. Quite literally. Even when you're doing your actual strategy, you're not doing anything. A lot of people like to shit on Vosh for his perspective, and a lot of people like to shit on Cenk Uygur for his perspective. Look, they actually put in the fucking work. Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kalinske, they were we could take over the Democratic Party and replace it with progressives. And guess what? They formed just as Democrats and got us AOC in the squad. Vosh says, oh yeah, we should do these things to help canvas or whatever. He helps Progressive Victory literally do that very same thing. But all these people are yeah, we should vote for their party. Where's the massive voter drive for the third party? Why aren't you getting that third party to come to your office and do an interview with them every week? Why not? Why aren't you guys doing anything to actually build? Even when I was all in oh, the third party, we needed a third party. You know what I did? I fucking covered third party news relentlessly. I covered the developments of the Green Party primary. I covered all the issues that were regarding the Green Party. I covered it all because I was I genuinely cared. But guess what? These guys aren't going to do that. Because again, all they want to do is shit on the squad and provide no alternative. And there's a reason for that. Because it's way easier to critique something than it is to actually make something. It's why we have this thing called Monday Night Quarterbacks. It's why a lot of the quote-unquote internet reviewer and critique sphere was built initially on shitting on a bunch of things. It was way easier for them to tear something down than build something up. I'm no stranger to this concept. I had a whole series on my channel where I literally just shit on other creators for all the things that they did wrong. Whether it be their ideology, whether it be their video quality, whatever. It's very easy to do. And nowadays, I'm a lot more softer. Whether it be on politicians, whether it be on media, whether it be on anything. I'm more softer because now, as I've gotten older and I've gotten to learn things, I've gotten to actually do certain things to do certain things, it hits me yeah, a lot of this is way more hard than you realize. Yeah, it could be easy to go to say, when I get into Congress, I'm gonna roll in there and be blah blah blah, I hate you, fuck you, bitch, shit, cunt, whatever. It'd be very easy to do that. But then you realize, Nobody's going to want to vote for your bills if you're going to go up to them and be like, you're a shit-eating cunt. Interesting. Now, instead of relentlessly shitting on a show for literally whatever, I actually have done some writing about whether or not to make a show or not. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually way harder than I thought it was. Interesting. That's my viewpoint to like you in regards to anything. Like, if you want to criticize something, it's like, okay, do it. You think you can do better? Go ahead. Like, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I could shit on this. I could either shit on the Star Wars prequels, or I could write a different one. And I recommend that for you. Like, instead of watching a TV show or a movie and saying, this is shit, this is bad, whatever, what would you have done differently? What specifically thing would you have done differently? Same thing with a politician. Like, you genuinely think AOC is doing a bad job? Run for Congress your damn self, and then show her how it's done. Like, you know what? I'll take it from here, buddy. But go ahead, see what happens. Like back in the early days, I legitimately thought, like, okay, I could definitely run and be a member of Congress. I can do this. Now that I'm older, I'm like, no, I absolutely cannot do this. I wouldn't last a day in Congress. But before I leave, I wanted to close out with asking a very simple question. Who exactly benefits from leftists disenfranchising themselves? Who exactly benefits from the squad losing members? The left certainly doesn't, but the right does. Jamal Bowman most recently lost his seat in Congress because AIPAC spent $14.5 million in one seat. And who was cheering that Jamal Bowman lost? Certainly wasn't the left. The right was cheering it. Zionists were cheering it. Republicans were cheering fucking Jamal Bowman losing. Genuinely, they were the ones who cared. Like, quite literally, all that the left did that night was lose. Like, some people on the quote-unquote left would probably say, like, oh yeah, no, we actually won because we got rid of Bowman because he was too Zionist. It's like, not a single fucking human being is even remotely thinking that the reason why Jamal Bowman lost was because he was too right-wing on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Everyone will turn around and think, oh, he was too left-wing on the subject. And before people say, no, there's no way. Yes, there is. Quite literally, every single electoral loss that happens from Democrats or whatever is always blamed on that. George McGovern, he lost because he was too left-wing. Michael Dukakis, too left-wing. Amar Kampanashar, I lost because I was too left-wing. Dianne Mitz-Bush, too left-wing. Jeremy Corbyn, too left-wing. Michelle Vallejo, too left-wing. Mondaire Jones, too left-wing. Mandela Barnes, too left-wing. Like, literally, ignoring literally every single other aspect of each of their losses. George McGovern, because I guess George McGovern's probably the only one who could probably be closely related to too left-wing. Michael Dukakis, because of the fact that Bush was running on the Reagan years that it was very popular. Mondaire Jones, because he lost in a district that he didn't even represent. Michelle Vallejo, because it was a pretty close district regardless. Jeremy Corbyn, because the media was literally smearing him as an anti-Semite when he wasn't. And Mandela Barnes for, literally, I don't get this analysis, oh yeah, Mandela Barnes, he was too left-wing, so, really, he was a big failure. It's he was literally, 1 point away from winning. Quite literally, it was literally some of the... I genuinely don't understand how people could even remotely claim that, especially considering literally John Fetterman was campaigning exactly like Mandela Barnes and won in Pennsylvania. Also ignoring the fact that Wisconsin's other senator is literally a far left person as well. And that's why there's a reason why you're only seeing the ones who want to shit on the squad and do nothing more. Because that's who the right-wing media wants you to pay attention to. They don't want you to see the ones that are actually offer salient criticisms of the squad and actually salient plans. They don't want you to see that. They want you to see, oh yeah, the ones who just disenfranchise yourself and move on. Because that way, they win. And I'm just fuck that noise. I ain't doing that. So yeah, hopefully this episode kind of explains why the squad, at least on paper, is good. The squad is good. I genuinely believe that the squad is good. And hot take, this might be a very hot take, I think they're the fact that we live in a world where literally some of the best members of the United States Congress are being shit on is just ridiculous to me. quite literally, again, the only ones I could even remotely say might be different is the fact, like, is Vito and Meyer London and Victor Burger. Like, literally. Yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on this subject. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when a future video man comes out. And if you want more content from me, you can go on my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.